Now the next thing, which is something that you absolutely 100,000% need to do, is Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, the best place to build your tech career and have fun along the way. I'm Liz, and today I'm super excited to share with you 5 things I wish I knew before becoming a math major. I graduated as a double major in math and computer science in 2020, and now I am in graduate school for computer science. In this video, I wanted to share my math mistakes and math regrets so that hopefully you can have a much better experience than I did. So if you are curious about math, or you're just someone trying to pass a really tough math course, this video is for you. With that, let's get into it. The first thing I wish I would have done better is taken quality notes at every single class. So in math courses, at least in my experience in college, the professors did utilize either chalkboards or whiteboards, and they would often write out the problem, how you solve the problem, or they would write out proofs depending on the class. And usually if the professor is writing something down, that's a good sign that you should write something down too. There are many different ways that taking good notes can benefit you. One way is that it will keep you alert during your class session so that you can make the most of what the professor is saying. Another thing is that your notes can help you with problems on the homework, problems on quizzes, and later problems on exams. And so practicing taking good notes is essential. And if you guys are curious how I take notes, I can make a separate video on that. But it's really helped me when I study and prepare that I can look back at my notes and see exactly what was going on. And also, if you're in a rush for classes, like you don't have enough time to make your notes pretty, something that I would do is I would rewrite my notes after class. So I would have, whatever notebook or sheet of paper that I was using during class, and then in a separate sheet of paper or notebook, I could copy my notes more delicately, pretty, aesthetically, and in whatever way that would help me learn. Sometimes I could add something like a question, and then later on, I'm looking at my copy notes and I'm seeing, oh, okay, like maybe there was something I didn't understand the first time, so I can write down a question and then later ask the professor for clarification. So taking quality notes is essential for anyone that is trying to get a math course completed. Now the next thing, which is something that you absolutely 100,000% need to do, is go to office hours. So a lot of times, especially math professors, they love helping students because they know that their course is difficult, and a lot of times, schools have math tutoring centers because math is something that a lot of people struggle with. So if you go to office hours, not only can you ask the professor exactly what your questions are from class or the homework, but a lot of times those professors will give away little hints on something that might be on a quiz or a future exam. So it's really beneficial to go to office hours, ask questions, or if you don't have any questions, it's good to go so that you can listen in on the other people that are at office hours and see what their questions are, so then you can gain from that as well. And then also too, the professor will get to know you. They might associate your face with the name, and then that will benefit you in how you perform in the class. Because if you are showing that you care about the course and you're spending extra time in office hours just to do well, the professor will be like, this student is really trying. They're trying their absolute best. They are trying to learn this material, and that does matter. So never think that if you get an F on your first quiz or your first exam and there's only like 3 exams in the whole course, it doesn't mean it's the end. You're not alone in your situation, because I'm pretty sure for me, especially like the first math course that I took in college was such a negative experience and very much crushed my confidence. But I will say that one of the reasons I did stay afloat in the end was because I went to office hours. So keep that in mind. My next math regret is that I did not utilize study groups enough. So during my first year, my first semester, it was really hard for me to be outgoing and meet other people in math, But when I finally got the courage to my second year in college, I did make some friends in the math department and in my math courses, and we were able to work together and study together and go through problems together, and that made the whole experience a lot more enjoyable. Because oftentimes, while you may struggle with the same things as one other person, if you get a group of 3 or 4 or a little bit more than that, you will find that some people have these strengths and then the other people have other strengths. So you can balance each other out, you can work through problems together, someone can do a problem on the board and you can work through it. So everyone is practicing more and everyone is learning and getting those tough materials into their brains. When there's a task or a subject or something that is very difficult for you, or you're struggling with it and you don't want to do it, a lot of times if you have a friend to do it with you, you are more likely to actually go through and do the tough, hard thing. So I would say, if you can, utilize study groups, form groups, even if it's with the person next to you or if it's with, some random people in Zoom that you try to start a group chat with, or you email and reach out to them. It's really important and it will save you a lot of time and frustration. Another thing that would have been a huge help for me during all of my math courses is to practice, and then repeat that, practice, and practice some more. So especially for courses like Calculus 2 and Calculus 3 and Probability and Statistics, where you have a lot of different equations and formulas to remember, I think repeating different problems and writing them out, writing the steps, is super important. And it's also important that when you practice, you do write out thorough steps, because a lot of times professors will give you partial credit on something even if you don't get the final answer correct. And so it's a lot easier to get points if they can see each line and each step of your work than it is if you just have the first line and the last line. They don't necessarily see your whole thought process, and if you got the question wrong, then unfortunately it's hard for them to see where you went wrong. I really appreciated the repetition and even just repeating the formulas and looking at my notes before I went to sleep. That helped me a lot. And then when it came to the proof-based math courses like real analysis or topology, and then in the beginning you might take math logic, also called discrete math, there's a lot more proofs involved. And so for me, what helped me perform well in the class is to write down what the professor wrote down in their proofs. So if you can copy the style of the proof that the professor likes and gives high grades on, then you will do better in the course overall. So repetition helps a lot. So my 5th and final piece of advice would be to practice time management. So unfortunately, when you're in college, a lot of times your math tests and quizzes are timed. And so even if you are working through a problem and you understand it and you are doing all the steps and you're double checking and you're triple checking your work, a lot of times you are in a time crunch, and just because you do the first problem on your 4-problem quiz perfectly, if you never get to problems 2, 3, or 4, then you still might only get a 25% on the total grade of that quiz. And time management is super important because you want to get to the problems that you know best. And so one tip would be, if you're taking a quiz or an exam, read all the questions first so that you can start with the ones you know right away and then leave the ones that you are more unsure about to the end. These professors design the tests sometimes without thinking how a student's mind thinks. So for example, I did have at least one mathematics professor that admitted he would write the exam and then he would set a timer and he would complete the exam himself, and then he would check the timer, and then from that he would say, okay, that's a reasonable exam for my students. And oftentimes in this class, the students wouldn't finish. Pretty much the whole class wouldn't be able to finish the whole exam by the end of the period. And so we would all be like, uh-oh, because we're all nervous that we didn't turn in the exam or we didn't get to all the problems. And thankfully, these professors do understand when the whole class is struggling or needs more time, and they will adjust. Maybe they'll say, okay, come back at your break hours, your lunch hours, and you can finish it then. But practicing time management, like with repetition, or if you time yourself on how fast you can do the homework, or if you redo the homeworks, or if you go through past quizzes to prepare for the final, that's really helpful because, again, math can take a lot of brain power, and speed is certainly an aspect to how well you will do on your quizzes and assessments. So if you can practice timing yourself, or maybe you can get together with somebody and you can both time each other, or try to do something together where you both solve problems and see how long it takes, that is going to help you. And I also will say that if you still feel like you can't get enough of the math problems done in time, you can always communicate that to the professor. I found that my professors were very understanding if a student needed extra time, and there is often like a separate space if you need to do your tasks with the exam or the quiz, so that there's no distractions. Just make sure you articulate those needs and concerns to the professor. Usually they're not heartless, so if you really studied hard for an exam and you're getting to the end of it, and you know everyone's turning it in, it's time to go to the next class, you can always talk to the professor and say, hey, like this meant a lot to me, I really studied hard, could I come in for 5 minutes more to work on the last problem or something, and just see what happens. The worst that they can say is no, but the best thing that they can do is give you a little extra time. So that's my last piece of advice for you. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this style of video, last week I did upload my computer science student mistakes and regrets, so be sure to check that out. And this past Tuesday I uploaded trying BuzzFeed tech trivia questions. So if you want to learn something about computer science or tech, or if you want to see if you can do better than me on a computer science quiz, check that video out. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. I hope you will stick around, and I do upload videos on Tuesdays and Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern, so I hope you will be there for that. Next week's Friday video will be on my regrets as a double major, and if you want to keep up with me on other social medias, I do post pretty frequently on my Instagram, Liz_Victoria_YT, and also on my TikTok with that same username. And I'll give a quick shout out to my other math videos on my channel. I do have a video on what math do you need for computer science, and I also have a video outlining my math and computer science double major degree, so be sure to watch that if you are curious about what goes into these degrees. And with that, I'm wishing you a wonderful weekend, and I will see you very soon.